All right, here we are. We are fast approaching NFL Draft Day 2026, and this is Jonesing for Football. And this is not only Jonesing for Football, it is a very special, and we're going to call it annual edition of Jonesing for Football. Bill Jones here in Dallas, young Cody Winstead wearing his cowboy blue in the former Super Bowl winning city of Philadelphia. And young Cody, we've got a very special guest who we had a year ago. And at that point, I don't think there's anyone in the NFL world who thought the New England Patriots were going to do what they did in 2025. I'll let you do the honors to introduce us to our special guest analyst this week, young Cody.
Hello, Bill Jones. Thank you very much. And yes, it is an honor. This is kind of a collaboration. I think that's what the kids call it these days. Jonesing for football and an all 32 podcast twist here, a collaboration. We're welcoming back one of our recurring guests. And the reason we continue to invite him back is because he's one of the very best football reporters in the country. One of my good friends, Mike Giardi from the Boston Sports Journal and the All 32 podcast. Hello, Mike. Thanks for being on with us today.
After that intro, I'm done. They're like, I don't need to do anymore. Like, that's it. You guys got, that feels good. And now I've got nothing left because everything from here on forward is going to be like, really? You think he's that good? What is he talking about? That's how this might go.
No. If anyone listens to the All 32 podcast, it's easy to see that this guy knows what he's talking about. I went back and looked. I think this is your fifth appearance on Jonesing for Football. So always glad to have you. Great insight as always. Mr. Jones, before we dive into this draft, though, I think we should talk about the New England Patriots. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I like that. I like that. And if we start having him a little more often, we might have to start dishing out for Mr. Giardi's
The
services.
backdrop needs a little help, guys. I could use a hole here. I could use some artwork, maybe,
Yeah,
throw
yeah.
some my way.
The payment we will give you is we've got a former NFL quarterback who does Cowboys games, who Babe Loffenberg, who listens to us regularly, or at least he says he listens to us regularly on
He
his
does.
elliptical. And so the All 32 podcast is now going to compete with Jonesing for Football for Babe's time. He is going to be worn out by the time the draft gets around. And I highly recommend the All 32 podcast. In fact, I went to bed last night listening to the All
Oh,
32. So.
put you right to sleep.
That's how it is. See, Giardi, you're lucky because normally he's watching tape of like Georgia State tight ends or defensive tackles at midnight this time of the year. So listening to the All 32 podcast is pretty good for him. All right, like I said, before we dive into the draft, let's talk about the Patriots. You cover them as close as anyone you have for a long time. I was just in your city and I realized the sports talk radio there is the same as here in Philadelphia. It's about A.J. Brown and a possible trade between the Eagles and the Patriots. And is A.J. going to New England? Is he leaving Philly? Give us your thoughts on where that is right now. Do you think it's going to happen? And if it does, what does it turn that Patriots offense into for next season?
So I think the Patriots would very much like to have A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown would very much like to be a New England Patriot. I think this is all going to come down to Howie Roseman and does he budge? And if you talk to people or listen to people who have really explored the cap ramifications, and we can talk about the number now. If they trade him before June 1st, they take the full cap hit and it'll be rough on Philadelphia. If they do a post June 1st, June 2nd, whatever the date is, then they can break it in half, considering all the obligations that Philly has to future payroll and some guys that they're going to have to pay likely going forward. That's the better option for Philadelphia. But if you listen to some of these people, they say, like, if they don't do this, they've really jammed themselves up in terms of even if they split that, like, he has to move basically. And then you have the relationship, I think, which, for a while I wondered how much of it was Sirianni and AJ, how much of it was AJ and Hurts. I think it's pretty clear now it's AJ and Hurts. Well, I don't know whether he doesn't like him or he just doesn't like the way he plays quarterback, which I think is probably the more likely scenario here. So, yeah, I think Philadelphia sort of has to get this done. The one thing that would be a holdup, I guess, beyond the ask, which had been at this point a first and a second, or now a first and then something significant was the latest thing I had heard, is if someone gets shut out during the draft process, right? You want this big receiver or you have your eye on something else and it doesn't happen, then you turn to Philly and go, hey, Patriots aren't going to give you that. We'll give you more. The Chargers being a team, I think that is on his list. I think he gave 4 teams that he would like to, at least privately, that he would like to go to. And the Chargers were there. They haven't spent a lot of money. They have a lot of money. So I don't know if you're the Chargers and you say we can get by with the medicals because the knee is obviously to a varying degree an issue for teams. It apparently was an issue for the Rams. That then maybe they could jump in. So I don't. I don't know that Howie has a ton of leverage, but I guess he's got a little, especially if things don't go a certain way on draft night.
All right, I've got a suggestion for the NFL, and it has to do with trades this time of the year. And you talk about A.J. Brown and the cap hit that the Eagles take now as opposed to June 1st. Last week on Jonesing for Football, I proposed a trade for the Cowboys, who are in desperate need of a middle linebacker. And Jordan Brooks with the Dolphins makes so much sense. And he's in a very similar situation. Obviously, the Dolphins are getting rid of everybody who and
Yeah.
Brooks's contract. If they trade him after June 1st, they'll save $6 million on their salary cap. Prior to that, they basically have to do, when you look at their cap situation, they have to get rid of Jordan Brooks to even sign their draft class since they got so many draft guys coming in. So anyway, my proposal to the NFL owners as they meet in Phoenix as we talk right now. All right, we have a post-June 1st cut that teams can make.
Yep.
How about post-June 1st trades that team to make? What do you think of that idea?
I love that idea. I mean, again, it would answer a lot of questions here for both teams, Philly and New England. I think it's a great point. Why can you do it with releases, but you can't do it with a trade? And I'll even go so far as to say, if you want to say, hey, look, that player can't report to you, like you can do the physical, the trade is done, but he can't participate in the OTAs until after June 2nd. I'm totally fine with that. I get that. And I think every team would be like, yeah, that's fine. As long as we can give them a playbook and make sure, again, the medicals are okay, then why not do that? Yeah, it should be done. They complicate things too much.
The player being traded for will be in favor of that too.
100%.
Not having to report until the summer.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So positional needs for the Patriots, and where do you think things sit with the Patriots right now, coming off a run to the Super Bowl? And what do you just an overview of what you think they're looking at on day 1 and 2?
Yeah, I think edge and tackle are two big areas of concern for them or needs. I think edge is the primary need at this point because, they swapped out, they brought in Draymond Jones in free agency. They swapped him out with Kayvon Chason. Harold Landry had knee surgery this offseason. He's 30. We'll see what, they have to keep him because his contract is structured such, but we'll see what he's got. And after that, an undrafted free agent in Elijah Ponder, who showed a little bit of flash, but what are we talking about here? He's a 24-year-old kid who played about 200 snaps in the NFL last season. So to me, edge would be the first spot I would go. A tackle's interesting though, because, they're committed to Will Campbell at left tackle for the next season at least. And he was fine this past year. I mean, obviously we saw what happened in the postseason after he came back from the injury. It was pretty ugly. They don't think that that's the kind of player he is. But on the right side, Morgan Moses, for the first time in 4 years, played a full season. He's going to be 35. Obviously he's at the end or damn near close to the end. And I think that's an area where they would look at and say, we would like to have his replacement in-house. I don't know if you saw this past week, the Patriot contingent was at Arizona State. I'm going to mess up the kid's name because I keep pronouncing it and trying it and getting it different ways. Max Hennichor, who is an intriguing prospect, is going to go in the first round from Arizona State. Vrabel was there working him out as part of the pro day, hands-on, typical Vrabel, hit me here and do this and do that. So he's a name that has come up quite a bit here, but he would have to be a first-round guy. And based on the way things are trending with him, he might be a first-round guy that you have to trade up to get. So I don't know what their appetite is for that.
Cody, about this time last year, the Cowboys and Patriots made a trade where Joe Milton left New England, came to Dallas. There are some fans here in Dallas there's a former first round offensive tackle that the Cowboys selected a couple of years ago who actually played right tackle in college. His name's Tyler Guyton. Some Cowboy fans would like to work out a trade with the Patriots right now for Tyler. But go ahead, young Cody.
No, I like that. Actually, I saw the video of Vrabel and Ihanachor, I think.
Yeah,
Ihanachor.
that might be it.
Yeah. I looked at like a million pronunciations,
Me too.
so it depends on which one you got. But I've actually been to multiple pro days where Vrabel's doing the same thing with other offensive linemen. I think he does that on pretty much every pro day he attends. He's getting in there with the D linemen, showing him moves, or with the offensive linemen working on moves with them. So that was good to see. Uh, Giardi, let's take it to the top of the draft and discuss the number one pick, Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
Headed to the Raiders. He probably already purchased a place there. I saw this week that he's got the playbook. Basically, he's learning things there. What do you like about his game? And do you consider him kind of an elite level quarterback prospect, or is he more kind of a middle of the road guy compared to other quarterbacks in previous drafts?
Yeah, I would say he's to me is more of a middle of the road guy, and that's not to say that he's not, that I don't think he's going to be good. Like I just wonder about the overall ceiling for him. But I kind of see him as like at his best, is he going to be like the 10th best quarterback in the league? Might he have a year where he dips, he's 7 or 8, like that's his big year. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, you can win with that. You can, and certainly they haven't done a lot of winning in
Yeah.
Vegas, so that'd be important. I love his play demeanor. I think his intelligence is off the chart. I think his ball placement is really good too. So like there are some really strong traits for him. He just feels more, and this is a comp that's been made, but he feels more like a Jared Goff type at the top of the draft versus a Caleb Williams, Drake, that sort of athlete. He's a better athlete than people give him credit for, but he's not that kind of athlete.
You look at obviously here in Dallas, we're looking at edge rushers. I'd love to get your thought on the edge rushers at the top of the draft from Reuben Bain, David Bailey, Arvell Reese, those types. What are you thinking along those lines? And obviously, the Patriots are a team that obviously they're not picking that high. They're not going to have the pick of those guys. But what do you see in those players?
Yeah, so I like the edge class a lot. It sort of reminds me of the receiver class this year, where there are a bunch of good players with flaws, and there isn't that one guy that sort of elevates above everyone else, and you go, that's the star. Like, I mean, Reese, the conversation around him this past week was kind of ridiculous because of a video where he wasn't as
Well,
angled to the ground as, what are we doing? Watch the tape. He's a good football player, but like, he wasn't their best football player. And we're talking about him likely going number 2 to the Jets. Reuben Bain was awesome all year, but he's got these T-Rex arms, which we just lived here in New England with the tackle situation. And like, does that become a problem at the next level when everybody's a better athlete, better players, better technique, the whole thing, right? Like, so that's sort of how I view the class, is that it's almost like pick your flavor of guy and know that it's not a complete player, and it may never be a complete player. So do you want a run stuffing defensive end who rushes one way, which is like Zion Young, who I would say is someone that Patriots would be interested in. They had him in for well, actually they went to his pro day, and I believe they're having him for a 30 visit, who's just a son of a gun to play against, like plays hard all the time, sets a mean edge, physical, but he's power to power. Like he's not a wiggly, bendy rusher. He's I'm going to smack you in the face and I'm going to push the pocket back, and you're either going to panic and get out and maybe I can get you, or someone else is going to get you, but there's no second pitch. And I think there's a lot of guys in the class that are like that, where there's no second pitch. And, maybe you can unlock that in some of these guys. Malachi Lawrence is someone from University of South Florida or Central Florida. I forget. One of the two.
Central Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is, really technical, great hands. And when you look at him, he's this awesome athlete. But then when you watch his tape, you're like, kind of is not. He's a little stiff in the hips. Can you unlock that? Can this really good athlete who has this issue, can that be unlocked? And if you do, you probably have a 10-sack guy who's in the league for 10 years, and you're really happy, and that's a great pick. And if you don't, maybe he's the 6-sack guy who you're always like, I just wanted a little bit more. And I think that's what this class is sort of all about.
You know, you look at Bailey and you see that bend around the edge, and we talk about Bain. The thing that Arvell Reese is one where when I'm watching him and knowing that how much off-ball linebacker he played, and not as much on the edge. But I know being coached by Matt Patricia that he says that Matt Patricia had him looking at Jamie Collins tape, and you having followed Jamie Collins in his career, maybe you see that in Arvell Reese. But what you see on film, what I've seen so far, it's a projection for me what he's going to be for an NFL team, which makes me wonder the Jets at 2 or whatever. At least you know with Bailey and Bain and kind of what you're getting as far as how he projects to the NFL at the position. I'm not sure about Arvell Reese.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Ohio State over there, Cody, like, was he not their third best defensive player? Was Sonny Styles and Downs better by and large over the course of the year than Arvell Reese is? And again, that's great company. We're talking about 3 guys that are all going to be picked in the probably the top 12 of the draft. But like, I don't know. I like Styles better, but then he's an off-ball linebacker. Do you draft an off-ball linebacker at number 2, even if he has some ability to rush the passer?
Well, and the other thing, I mean, you look at Caden McDonald inside, you look at the season, even that a guy who's projected as a third day, Caden Curry, what he did on the outside as well. You can, I mean, as far as production on the field, Arvell Reese may have been their 5th best player. And there's another Styles in the defensive backfield, too. That's not taking anything away from his athleticism and what NFL scouts who are paid to do this might see in Arvell Reese, where they're like, oh, yeah, he's the number 2 pick in the draft. I'm not smart enough to figure that out.
What I would say is Arvell was the most flashy player on the team, and especially early in the season against Texas, against a lot of those early opponents where he made more splash plays than everyone else. And again, Sonny Styles is a little bit more of a solid player, only 1 or 2 missed tackles the entire season. Caleb Downs is where he's supposed to be and lines everybody up, so he's super solid. But I would say Arvell Reese is the highest ceiling player, which is probably why he's going to be taken number 2. And we've gotten to this point where position versatility is great unless you're taking at the super high top of the draft. And then they're like, well, he doesn't really have a position. So it's actually a negative that he can play both because he doesn't really have one if he can't figure one out. So I also think that's interesting. I love Reese. Again, he just started playing edge. Number one, he's only a 1-year starter. So you would think the more he plays and gets used to things, he'll be better at whatever they decide to be. But he's got the size and the strength and the speed to probably play either. And if he turns into a mini Micah Parsons, then you hit a home run at number 2. And even if he doesn't, he's going to be a really solid inside linebacker.
If he turns into Jamie Collins, then you didn't get what you want. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
And I don't say that Jamie Collins wasn't a really good player, and I think he made a Pro Bowl, which whatever we can talk about we can debate the merits of what being a Pro Bowler is, but like at number 2, if he has Jamie Collins' career, you're like, we could have done better. We needed to do better because, as I said in my argument last year with the Will Campbell thing, was when I'm picking 4, and you can tell me, oh, the draft class wasn't as great or whatever. When you're picking at 4, I'm aiming for an all-pro player. Like, I want to find the guy that I think at some point during the course of his career is going to be an all-pro player, not a Pro Bowler, but an all-pro. And that's why I was like, I like Membu better than I like Campbell, even though right tackle versus left tackle. I'm like, but if he's the Pro Bowl player, I mean, an all-pro player, like, that's what I want. If you can tell me you're going to plug him in at right tackle and I don't have to worry about it for 10 years, that to me is the thing that makes the most sense. And that's where I sort of do. If I'm in the draft room with somebody from the Jets, and I'm like, is he going to be that? Do we feel really good that that's where his ceiling is going to be, and that's where we're going to get him?
The other part of that, and we'll move on, is if he had the same, young Cody and I, we're big on we scout the player interviews. And when I listen to Sonny Styles talk, when I listen to Caleb Downs talk, I'm like, whoa, these 2 guys, you can tell just how much football IQ they have, and they are face of the franchise type players, regardless of what their position is. And that's no knock against Arvell Reese. I don't know what he's like that, but it jumps off the page at me with Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, where I don't care what position they play. Those are two guys I want on my football team, and I would be willing to use a top five pick on either one of those guys, even for that reason, along with their athleticism. Young Cody, you have a point to make.
Yeah, to be a little bit fair, Arvell Reese, we interviewed him at the Combine, Laura Rutledge. Just a different kind of guy. Number one, he's young. I think he was 20 years old playing this year. Number two, I mean, he's a multiple time scholar athlete and all academic. Like the dude is smart. He knows how to play multiple positions. That's why Matt Patricia was like, this is going to be the guy that I'm going to move around. Like Caleb Downs in the secondary was the guy who made everything work there. They kind of based everything around Arvell and that linebacker core, and then let Sonny Styles just play the run and clean stuff up.
All right, pick number five, the New York Football Giants, John Harbaugh, who, by the way, Mike, I'm suggesting that the Giants could be this year's Patriots from last year with a second-year quarterback and what Harbaugh's doing with just like Vrabel last year. But anyway, perfect fit for the Giants at number five. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen in front of them, the first four, but if the Giants got the guy that they wanted to fit what Harbaugh wants to do on offense or defense, who would that guy be?
Jeremiah Love or Caleb Downs. And I just think because of the position, the value on the position, I just don't think Caleb's getting picked that high. So to me, it's Love. You know, we obviously saw what he was able to create with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. I think Love is like about as flawless a prospect. I know a lot of people you talked to. Remember last year we were going bananas about Ashton Genty and like he's as good a running back. This guy's better. Like everything he does is better. So yes, same thing. Like with safety, like do you want to pick a running back that high? Well, when you have a second-year quarterback and you want to establish this physicality that is sort of a trademark of the Harbaugh teams, that to me makes a lot of sense there. You can take a little pressure off Dart. You can run the football a little bit better, control the clock a little bit more. All those sorts of things that John Harbaugh loves to do.
Cowboys pick at 12 and 20. Obvious defensive needs for this team. Just the way you see things playing out. What do you think, Cowboys at 12 and 20? If you here nearly a month out, over 3 weeks out from the draft, what do you think with the Cowboys?
Yeah, McCoy, the corner from Tennessee. I think that's a natural place. I think that people have mocked him, and obviously didn't play football last year. And there was some talk that like, oh, he was supposed to and he didn't. I believe, have they had their pro day or they're about to?
They're about to.
Yeah, and I think he's going to test or do some things there. So I think for NFL teams that like his tape from 2 years ago was awesome. This is why we're even having the conversation for someone who didn't play at all last year. But I think it will be reassuring for teams to see him move and be like, oh yeah, that's the athlete we remember watching on tape 2 years ago at Tennessee. CJ Allen, to me, like he's a good player. This is going to be like damning him with faint praise. Like, I don't think he's a star, but you talked about the idea they need a middle linebacker. And if the Jordan Brooks thing doesn't happen or they just don't want to wait around and CJ falls to 20, they let CJ Allen call the plays at Georgia. Like that, the level of trust, like they don't do that there. Pretty much no one does that. Everybody wants to control like the puppets. We see it on the sidelines with the signs and everything. Like you're not calling your own plays, offense or defense. And they were like, no, CJ knows what the hell he's doing. He's going to put everybody in the right place. We're going to be in the right place. Boom, let him do it. So to me, like maybe he's a high floor, maybe a lower ceiling than some of these other prospects, but like immediately would solidify your defense. And that level of intelligence to me is like, it's really important. Like the Patriots have it. Robert Spillane, who was, I believe, was undrafted, coming out of college and is now, being paid pretty handsomely. But like one of his superpowers is the guys will tell you, like, if he tells us what to do before the snap, shut up and do it. Like he sees something, knows something, just do it. And it works out. And CJ Allen sort of has that same reputation coming out of Georgia.
Wow, that sounds like Sean Lee. We love Sean Lee
Yeah,
outside of the injuries
player.
here.
Yep.
And that's exactly what the Cowboys need at middle linebacker. Exactly.
Here's what I'm thinking for the Cowboys, and I want to get both your guys' opinion. You talked about Caleb Downs probably not going at number 5 because of that position need and all that. Right now, well, initially I'll say I thought the Cowboys were hoping to get Mansour Delane. He ran too fast. He's too clean of a prospect. He ain't falling to 12. But I do think there is a chance, and this is what I'm going to predict. Caleb Downs falls to the Cowboys at 12 because he is a safety, because he's not the biggest or the fastest or anything like that. Like he didn't run a 4.3. There's nothing that you can actually grab onto and say, like, oh, look, he's Sonny Styles. He's 6'5 and he runs this. I think Downs is going to fall to the Cowboys at 12. Bill Jones, I want your opinion on this first, and then Giardi, I'd like to get your take on that.
Well, I've always said that he's the face of the franchise type personality, character, all of that, football IQ. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they probably should run to the podium with the pick if Caleb Downs is there at 12. Having said that, I love Dylan Thieneman as well. And Thieneman, whether you have to get him at 12, I don't know. The ideal situation, would he still be there at 20? But same type things with Dylan Thieneman, I think, as with Caleb Downs.
And Bill, do we rule out they made 3 separate offers, right? Reported for Max Crosby. Do we rule out on draft day them throwing the 12 or the 20 at the Raiders and with then some and trying to get Crosby, or because they got kid from Green Bay who's I'm drawing a blank and say, yeah, there you go. Does that rule them out?
With Rashawn Gary, I think it rules them out, but at a lesser price, it doesn't rule them out because they still, as Babe Laufenberg is shouting on his elliptical right now, yes, they need pass rush. They need not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 pass rushers. And Max Crosby takes care of maybe 3 of those 4 with the way he plays. I guess there is a question about the medical with Max Crosby, who, by the way, is from here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, went to Colleyville Heritage High School. Supposedly the offer that the Cowboys made was one of those first plus Oso Digizua, who they later then sent to San Francisco for a 3rd-round pick. So they don't have that player to offer unless would they be interested in the aforementioned offensive tackle?
Wow. Or Tyler Guyton.
So I think that they're out of the mix for sure at that price, because the price apparently has gone down for Max Crosby. But it's very interesting and something to follow come draft day for sure.
Giardi, last year, 2 guys I loved that I thought deserved to be drafted higher. Emeka Ibuka, obviously from Ohio State. I think all of them should be drafted higher. No, just kidding. But Josh Connerly was the other one. Both ended up having good rookie seasons. Is there a player that you see in these mock drafts that might be in the middle to back half of round 1? You're like, that guy probably should go higher than most people have him.
I think we were talking about him earlier, Hennichor, or however you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's someone that I think for a little while there it was like, I'll be back into the first round. Oh, I could even see him slipping into the top of the second. And now the more people have watched him, and then I think the more people have interacted with him from an NFL level, I'm talking the people that matter, that make the decisions, the more it's like, dude, he's more polished than we thought for someone who didn't start playing football till he was in JUCO, which is insane that he didn't start playing until he was in junior college. And then he has this phenomenal game. If you go back and watch the tape against Texas Tech, as you guys well know, ruined a lot of offensive linemen and offenses this year. That might have been his best game. So that's like a wow moment for him. And I think people have gone back and looked at that and said, if he can handle those guys who we're talking about, 3 defensive linemen that are all going to be picked in the top in the first 2 days, one who might be picked number 2 overall, certainly probably in the top 10, and Bailey, like that says a lot. So I think he's someone that, like I said, where I think it went from he's probably going to be sitting there at 31 to now might he be in the mid first round scenario just because of the tools and like, hey, if we get him a little bit better coaching, this guy's going to blossom. There's some later day guys, but are we getting into that a little bit? I don't want to jump the gun. Yeah. So that's one that sort of pops out to me.
Let me ask you about quarterbacks who did not win a Heisman Trophy. Ty Simpson,
Yeah.
as well as Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller from Penn State. What are you thinking with this group of quarterbacks in this draft?
I like Nussmeier the most out of those guys, but I don't know that I think that Nussmeier is like a long-term starting quarterback. Like he might be the guy, might be the Jacoby Brissett type, someone who starts a lot of games but is never quite the answer to the position. Simpson, and I get why he's not, because he's probably going to go in the first round, and how do you say no to that guaranteed money? But he would have been, to me, better served playing another year of college football, especially the way last season ended for him, where I know there's been a big debate about him over the last week or so, but like his tape was awesome for the first 6, 7 weeks. Like he played great football, he spins it, he's tough, coach's son like Nussmeier, like you've got all those things. He hasn't played a ton of football, and he's a little bit slighter than some of these other guys in terms of his size. And it just would have been nice for me, just to evaluate him based on another year. But I get it. If someone's telling you you're going to go in the first round, it's pretty hard to say, you know what, I'm going to pass up guaranteed millions. Go back to college where not nowadays you are making a couple million at least, but hey, I blow out a knee or my shoulder goes to crap, or we just don't have the kind of year we want, and then you're Carson Beck and you're getting picked in the 5th round.
I would like to see Garrett Nussmeier if he was a little bit taller. Like going into that combine, Nussmeier was listed at 6'2", Simpson was 6'2", and Nussmeier was 6'1". And then come to find out, they get measured at the combine, they're the exact same size. I saw them at the combine right next to each other, and they are both small. Like Garrett, to me, has a little bit more build. Ty Simpson's just small. I don't know what else to say about it. I spoke with Dan Orlovsky around free agency just about the quarterbacks, and man, Ty Simpson is just small. I feel like when I watch him play, like he plays small sometimes, that is why. So I feel like if Nussmeier had 2, 3, 4 inches, he might be, they might actually flip spots. They could be drafted right by each other. So I think that's the situation on those quarterbacks there.
Young Cody, go ahead, Mike.
And that's why Aller, I think, has gotten some late buzz again. Obviously, he had the season-ending injury, and Penn State season was an absolute dumpster fire. But like, okay, it's great that he has all the measurables and he's this big kid. Like, he ain't it. I think maybe he could sit for 2 years behind somebody, and you could, you throw him in a McVay Shanahan system, and maybe you find, you unearth that thing that everybody's been waiting to see that they never saw. It never, he never did it at Penn State like it was projected to happen. So, but he's getting that buzz now. And I think because you look at the other quarterbacks and you're like, well, he's tapped out. He's too small. Like maybe it's worth taking a dart throw on this kid in the 3rd round and see what happens.
Here's what I'll say about Drew Aller, and I watched him a ton, obviously playing against Ohio State and playing against all the Big Ten teams. There are certain quarterbacks who are good versus trash and trash versus good. He was trash against a lot of the good teams, almost all the good teams that he faced multiple years at Penn State. In fact, like a lot of people here in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania are like, oh, we're going to be ranked number 1 in the country and we should be the best coming into last year. And I said, is Drew Aller still your quarterback? They said yes. And I said, well, then you will not win. I guarantee that. It ended up playing out that way. So I feel like it's funny that a lot of NFL evaluators are like, you know what? In the end, you just put on the tape and just see what does the tape show you. If you watch the tape against Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, any decent team in the Big Ten, there is no way you would be able to pick Drew Aller anywhere near the first 2 days.
Yeah, you pick him in the 6th round.
Correct.
And like, hey, you know what? If we can develop this kid for a couple of years, who knows? Maybe we have a quality backup who could start a couple games for us. But you're not thinking like, oh, he could eventually be our guy. I don't see it.
Yep.
Young Cody, you mentioned that you'd love to see Garrett Nussmeier, or a Nussmeier that was taller. Well, in the 2030 draft, you will see a Nussmeier who is taller, as Garrett Nussmeier has a younger brother, Colton Nussmeier, who is going to be a senior at Flower Mound Marcus High School, who's like 6'5". And so he'll be in that draft. Wouldn't it be amazing if Doug Nussmeier could coach both of his sons, which I don't know how much he's even been able to watch his sons play any high school or college football, because he's been doing his own coaching.
That's good stuff, Bill Jones. See, do we have is he a 4-star and a 5-star?
He's a 4-star. He's a 4-star. Number 10. I just looked it up. Number 10 ranked quarterback in the nation, coming out of his
above or below
year.
Rivers, right? Phil Rivers' kid is supposed to be really good.
Oh, there you go.
He's like a 7th, maybe. Yeah.
Do both of those guys have pages in the green notebook? That's what I want to know.
I'm just starting on the 2030 Green Notebook as you ask this next question. I'm writing Colton Nussmeier down.
Well, I like it. Giardi, like I said, I listen to almost every All 32 podcast. You do a great job. Every time I'm hearing you every week, one or two pods a week, you're always talking about this tight end class. So tell us about why you like them so much and then some of those guys that stand out to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly deep, and it's one of those ones where there's still going to be good players on the third day. There might be, there could be starting tight ends picked in the sixth round of this draft who end up impacting a football team. So it's a deep group. There are some guys that are NFL ready as blockers. There's guys like Eli Stowers who I wouldn't want him to block a soul. Like, just go stand over there. You're an awesome athlete. Go rip up this linebacker. And like, we've got this mismatch situation. It's a kid like Sam Roush from Stanford, who unfortunately, we get again to the prospects. He has super short arms, like almost like freakishly short, because he's 6'7" and he's got 30.25-inch arms. So like, just stretch those suckers out, because it's 6'7", 267. Like, he runs well with the football. He blocks like an animal. Like, he's got all these things, but he does struggle a little bit in contested catch situations. And it's part of it is just, I can't, these arms just don't go any further. But like, I love him. He's sort of, I'm sort of overlooking that one aspect of him, because like, he tested at the Stanford Pro Day, 708 in the 3-cone at 267 pounds, which is freakish. Didn't like his time, tested again and did a 702. So God bless him. Like I love like, I'm one of those guys. I like the world has changed. Nobody wants to compete in any of these things at the combine anymore. But I love the fact that not only was he at the combine, but then he turns around at pro day and he does this thing there as well. Multiple like move tight end types like Stowers. I'm trying to think of if I have any like the German kid from Michigan, Klein. Like, he's someone that now like people are starting to come around on, being like, well, yeah, he didn't get the ball thrown to him a ton in that offense, part because the quarterback couldn't throw it all that well. And like, I think Underwood will get better, but like, that's one of those guys where you can look at it and go, I think there's more there for this player. And you get him into a pro system, like he might be someone that contributes. Max Clare, obviously from Ohio State, we have to mention, actually both Ohio State kids, right? But I think Claire's a second-round pick. There's some talk about, well, his production wasn't awesome. Well, they had Jeremiah Smith and freaking Carnell Tate. Like, I'm sorry, like the ball's not going to him first or second. Like, that's where you're looking, and then you go to that kid. So it's a really good group. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to be in the league for a long time. I think Dane Brugler from The Athletic has talked about it. Like, I think he had like 25 graded tight ends, which is the most he's ever had. So it's a really, really deep group. And again, different flavors for different teams, but you should be able to find that, which is why I wonder if some of these guys that maybe I thought were day 2 guys might just end up in day 3, early in day 3, just because like, hey, there's 5 guys like this. We don't have to pick this one here at the end of the second or early in the third. We can just let this filter out. These guys are all close enough that we can pick a different position here and then come back to this on day 3.
It sounds like the 2022 draft for tight ends when Charlie Kolar went to 128 to Baltimore, Jake Ferguson 129 to Dallas, Isaiah Likely 139 to Baltimore, and those 3 guys got second contracts that are huge. And so that might be the spot there in the 4th round where you see a lot of these tight ends come off the board. We moved to the mid to late round picks for Mike Giardi. And this is when, the next 3 weeks are so big time for young Cody and me, because what we love to find are those gems on the 3rd day. So Mike Giardi, lead us in the right direction. Give us gems on the 3rd day of this draft that we need to look at.
So I tweeted this out last week and it was met with some resistance. I don't care, because I just love this player. And then, again, you talk to people in the league and like, hey, Mike, he's not going to go in the 2nd round. AJ Halsey from LSU, safety. He played at 220 something for them this past year. Pretty good ball skills. I posted a clip of him on Twitter, and I get it. You can get the highlights. You play Division I football. You're gonna, you you should, and you start, there should be 10 or 12 plays that we're going to be like, oh, that guy's, he's a monster. Like he hits, he's quicker than he should be at that size. He dropped down in weight at the combine so he could run a little faster. I don't want that. I want you to play at 220. Like he'd be the guy, and I know it's a different era, but like if this was 2005, he's probably a top 15 pick. He's just one of those John Lynch, Rodney Harrison type physical, but moves pretty well. I love him, but he's probably, again, I think end of the day, he's probably a third day pick. Jeremiah Trotter, the name is obviously very familiar because his dad was the linebacker in Philadelphia for a long time, 10 years, plays a lot like his dad, big, physical, strong. But being that he's an inside linebacker, that's probably a guy who ends up going on day 3. I think he's someone who's going to come in and play right away for somebody and impact a team. Trying to think. There's a whole bunch of wide receivers. Like you could tell me that Malachi Fields from Notre Dame ends up early in the second round. You could also tell me that he gets picked in the 4th or 5th, and that wouldn't surprise me in the least bit because much like the edge, there's a lot of guys that have strengths and then have decided weaknesses, and it's going to be up for a team to see, beauty in the eye of the beholder type of situation. So those are some of the guys that I look at and say like that could be a find if he ends up in the right place.
Bill Jones, you got any day 3 guys that have created pages there in the green notebook yet?
Well, I'm flipping through pages as we speak, and no, this is my time. This is
when Bill cooks.
Yeah, exactly. This is when I start texting young Cody at 2:00 in the morning saying, "Have you seen this guy from Western Michigan?" This was when I fall in love with third day prospects, and so I save it for this time. For me, Mike, I've been my full-time job at CBS 11 here. I got to deal with the startup baseball season. Fortunately, we didn't have an NBA season this year because they traded that season away last year. We do have a hockey team, but it's not the playoffs yet. And so I've got to deal with this other stuff. Now, though, I can dig in to the draft. And I know that you love doing it. And I just think it's amazing over the last 20 years how Parcells used to talk about it's such a cottage industry, this draft business, and it's really with the advent of YouTube. When YouTube came along in the mid aughts, where you could actually watch video without it breaking up, that's when all of us and fans got into the draft as much as they get into the NFL season.
Cody, you got anybody?
I do. I'll give you the wide receivers because you were just talking about it. Skylar Bell, who is from UConn. I like him. And then Jeff Caldwell from Cincinnati. Those are kind of like day 3 picks. Completely different players. Skylar Bell's more of a scat wide receiver, gadget guy, put in his hands, let him run. Jeff Caldwell is like a freak monster, big and fast. Somehow both of those guys look like they're going to be day 3 picks now. But to your point, someone that, who knows, could end up as like a third wide receiver during their rookie year here.
Yeah, Caldwell blew up at the combine, and everyone was like, "I got to go back and watch this kid's tape." I was not I was not familiar with your game, sir. That was very much the case. And Bell, I mean, obviously it's a local connection to UConn. Their quarterback had a really good season and was at not the Senior Bowl, was he at Shrine Game? He was at one of those games, one of the All-Star games, and they've been pumping him up. If you go back and watch some of the tape, Bell's numbers would have been significantly better had the quarterback been able to put the ball somewhere close to where it was supposed to be on a fair amount of times. So you think to yourself, like, oh, if I put this guy with a real quarterback,
yes,
like, is there something here beyond a day 3 pick? But you're right. That's probably where he's going to go. So, yeah, there's a lot of neat players on the day 3 stuff that I don't know if they make or break a draft, because obviously we focus on the high end guys and you really can't screw those picks up, and they get screwed up often, but you can save yourself with some of those guys on day 3.
Part of the reason I like the day three, and I think Bill Jones is the same way, is number one, a lot of them are just really great kids, and you could just see the work ethic. They were at one small program the whole time. They could have transferred, they didn't. The other reason I think we like these guys is because they don't check every box. There's they're a little bit shorter or a little bit slower, but you kind of have to calculate the boxes that are checked, and you're like, I'm willing to risk it on a guy like this. So the combination of that is pretty awesome to investigate and just dive deep in. You're reading articles and listening to interviews. It's really cool.
Well, and Mike can attest to one of my in my big green notebook, Mount Rushmore is the picture Rex Burkhead.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you can attest to Rex Burkhead, his time winning a Super Bowl ring with the New England Patriots, those kind of guys. And I tried. Tom Siskowski was the director of college scouting for the Cowboys, running the draft basically. He was higher than that at the time that Rex came out, and I would see him at Valley Ranch. I'd say, this kid from Plano, you got to take Rex. And they wound up drafting Joseph Randall in the fifth round
They
instead. And
didn't listen to you. If they listened to you, who knows?
that's right.
Could have
Yeah,
changed history.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. He'd be in the Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Bill, you should
Plano.
just leave the green notebook just like right next to Jerry Jones's office or something. Just happen to leave it like on the floor so he has to trip over it walking out of it. That'd be a great idea.
Slide it under the door as you walk
No,
out.
no. If he wants to look in the big green notebook, he's going to have to pay. He's got enough money to pay to look in the big green notebook.
I don't
Mike,
know. He doesn't
it's
like to
fun.
part
It
with
was
his pennies.
fun.
Yeah, always fun.
I can't wait to listen to more of your All 32 podcasts leading up to draft day. We appreciate you joining us here. Young Cody, some parting words for Mike.
Giardi, you're the man. Like I said, as knowledgeable as any football reporter in the country. I honestly listen to my number one is all 32 podcasts. Then I'll go back and re-listen to Jonesing for Football podcast if I listen to yours. But great stuff as always. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's always fun. We'll do it again.
Cool.
All right. And we will see you next time here on Jonesing
For football. Love you, babe.